Like there was the Marshall Plan for Germany after the World War. Knowledge is your ticket out of this trap. Welcome to Joadre. I am Joadre, and in this video, we're going to explore 5 baby steps to gain financial freedom and at the same time create social impact in the African space. Africans, it's time to own equity. We're going to look into how to take advantage of the space where you find yourself now as an African diaspora. If this video is too long, I'm going to break it down into 2 parts. One posted today, the next day I'm going to post and release the second video. Like there was the Marshall Plan for Germany after the World War. There are like people sitting down, their job, civil servants, is to create frameworks and plans that will encourage European businesses to get into the market, the African market space. While Europe has that plan, we Africans should also develop a plan for the rest of the world. So we're going to explore ways that we can actually start stepping our feet into the spaces and owning the spaces. Growing up in Nigeria, I grew up in a relatively wealthy family. My dad was doing well. At about 15, my parents separated. Separated is actually an understatement. My dad threw my mom out of the house, like, get out of my house, take your kids with you. In that, take your kids with you was like, take the girls with you. So I saw how my mom this experience broke her. She was not prepared for what was coming, like the financial struggle that we were all going to fall into. Can't pay school fees and all this. So what I actually saw in this moment was my grandmother, who was an independent woman. She traveled different states on her job appointments, and she had a small 1-bedroom apartment that she lived close to us. She took us in, and looking at how she buckled herself together to really make us feel comfortable, and the financial freedom that she for herself created, I was like, I want to be like this. So my grandmom inspired me. Living together with my mom, my grandmom, 2 aunties, and my sister in a 1-bedroom apartment. And there were moments where I had to actually think about the food I'm holding in my arms. Like, if I eat this, my sister is not going to have, because she was a lot younger, she's not going to have meal for the evening. So living through those moments of not having 3 square meal, of having excess with my dad, and then all of a sudden not having 3 square meal, and seeing how my mom struggled with this situation and being so dependent on my dad all these years. And then also seeing how her mother, my grandmother, who was independent, was now able to harbor like 4 or 5 of us, right? That was the moment I was like, I want to live and experience freedom in all spaces: financial, economic freedom, social freedom, emotional freedom, right? Cultural freedom. I want to be able to own the spaces and influence the spaces I step into. And that was an inspiring experience to watch how my grandmother could do it. That story is not unique. It's unique to me, but it's not unique to many families, many young women growing up in the Nigerian space. Many young women are doing stuff. I started my first business at the age of 16, and those were the moments where I was like, oh my God, I wish I had someone that told me it's going to be okay. This is an approach. This is a way to go about it. I'm holding your hand. Go through entrepreneurship. These are the things you could do. These are the things maybe you want to take, think about. I wish I had a mentor. I wish I had financial support to push all these small businesses I was doing at that very tender age of 16. I'm very grateful now that my life has taken another turn, and I'm excited to have all the opportunities I have now. So looking at this and with this experience, this is what drives me. This is what has made me thought about, I want to create this channel. I want to share my journey, share the experiences, share the project and the things I do and the things I see, and see how I can get more of you, more African diasporas, and also people with non-African backgrounds that really want to have the sincere intention to uplift the African continent. Just take you along on this journey and see what we could forge, the bold future we could forge together, because you've got the power. You have to activate it. Now, let's go to baby step number 1. So I wrote all the steps down in my cards, Like I said, if this video is going to be too long, I'm going to just make 2 videos out of it. Now, so don't hide. This is the baby step number 1. Don't hide. Own the spaces you find yourself in right now. You must not move, stop your life here in Europe or America or Asia to move to the African continent to do something. If you can do it, I always say great. I started my journey a couple of months ago. I'm going to be sharing that in another video as well. It's been challenging, but very, very rewarding, exciting. But you must not take that step, because I prepared. I spent like 5 years cooking this idea and, you know, connecting, going back from time to time, getting on Zoom calls, connecting, starting, trying stuff. So I started already, and I'm going to show you, take you on that journey and how to do it. But first of all, I needed to own the space I am in. Whatever network you have, whatever skill you have, where you're working, own that space. Own that space means also that you have to get really involved. Know what the policies are, like the international policies, especially international policies that relates to the African continent, the African development, economic space, social space. Own that, be active in that space. And owning space means you can also buy properties where you are, right? Because these are all things that will really help you leap and take that journey that you want to take into financial freedom, into social impact in the continent. You can create a strong social circle. You know, owning your space, living your full potential right now where you are is baby step number 1. And it's your right to do so. Remember a couple of hundreds of years ago when Europeans came into the continent and they were like, oh my God, this place is so rich. How do we get part of it? How do we get to own these spaces and keep it from generation to generation? So there's generational wealth built in Europe. Like those, that kingdom, that ruler doesn't want to give us access. Now, what about that chief? That chief is eyeing to become a ruler. Do you want to become a ruler? Oh, we've got canons. We've got ways to help you. You know, just oppose that ruler and we'll stay behind you. But if you do that, make sure you give us that land. Make sure you give us that right. Make sure you give us that access. Make sure you give us that human resource as enslaved people. Make sure you give us land and mineral resources. So these first Europeans coming in with a barbaric mentality actually instigated and escalated tribal conflicts, right? And this is a story that somehow still exists till today. But now, in today's time, we as Africans, we are professionals, we have our jobs, we are entrepreneurs, we are building families, you know, we are building spaces, we are contributing to the tax systems in these countries. So it's your right. It's your right to own spaces there. Now, let's go to baby step number 2. Baby step number 2 is about the narrative. This is so important. This is more important than finances. Narrative shapes the perception of reality. So what you consume, what you hear, what's around you in the different mediums and format that it serves to you creates how you perceive what is real. So you can actually influence what is real, because when we start to shape the narrative, it has economic impact, it has social impact, it has cultural impact, it has political impact. It impacts the spaces beyond where we are right now. I want to give you an example how narrative literally shapes the reality over generations. Like when I was growing up, I remember seeing my great-grandmother. I met my great-grandmother and she had this really traditional African outfits that were hand-woven. They were white or they were red. They were some kind of earthy tones and I really loved them. But as I started getting older in my teenage age, I noticed that we had loads of this African print called Ankara, right? These African prints, I think I have one here. Let me show you one. This is an example, but this is an original one. So I'm coming to the point now. I'm going to wear that in another video. Okay, so these African prints, somehow we've been told that this is our fashion, this is Africa. You think about Africa, you see Africa where it's all colors and with these big patterns, these prints, that's the fashion and everything. I really hail African designers that are just taking the parts they want and not sticking to this narrative. But that narrative has somehow actually made me believe that, oh, these are the fabrics we make. When I was young, I really believed that, like, we'll make these fabrics until I got into like really exploring fashion. When I got to Europe, I had the social project around fashion. And then last year I worked on a documentary film that had a lot to do with textiles in Nigeria from the African space, and I did loads of research and traveled around Nigerian states talking to experts in universities, historians, and then I was shocked to realize that most of this Ankara that we are actually just like, this is African fashion, it's just branding because we're the consumers. They are branding it for us so that we can keep giving our money out, and the money's being expatriated from these countries. So loads of West African, millions of West African buy this fabric. So you can imagine how much money that's creating to the producers. But most of the producers, the high-end prints, for example, are produced in Netherlands. Yes. Some are produced in Manchester. Yes, historically actually produced also in Manchester. And those produced in Netherlands came in with the Dutch. This was actually even before the colonial time. This was pre-colonial history, right? Came in with the Dutch and then stayed over the colonial time. And in post-colonial time right now, we are still wearing this, celebrating it, which is great. I have nothing against it. I'm going to wear Ankara fabrics. I love the colorful fabrics, but sometimes we just have to reflect and think on a large scale, like how is this empowering us? At the end of the day, that money is going to Netherlands. The money is going to Manchester. And the cheaper versions of these fabrics, they come from Asia, Korea, China. So some even come from India. So you see, at the end of the day, the narrative that we've sucked in as a child, I literally thought we make these fabrics, that we make most of these fabrics. There were factories, I think around the 1970s, 80s, we had over 180 factories, textile factories producing fabrics. But over the time, it was systematically destroyed. Those factories used to employ millions of people. Basically, right now, it's just a handful of thousands. You had factories in Ghana, you had factories in Nigeria. So, but with this narrative, and we keep seeing the fabrics in the market, somehow we just like feel, the everyday person just feels like, yeah, we produce this fabric. No, we don't. Most of them are being imported, and that money is leaving the country. It's not even only about the money, it's about the knowledge, it's about the machineries. If we can get these machineries, for example, on ground, we know how to make the machines, we know how to repair and maintain the machines, we know the technology of making the fabric, the skill, the craft of making these designs, for example. Some of the designs, they have patent and copyrights on them that belongs to companies abroad, right? But we know how to create these designs and all this. We know the whole process. If we can do that, I mean, we have the market. We won't need shareholders from abroad, actually. So, of course, these companies, they know the power we have as Africans. So that's why it's so important for most of these countries and companies to keep us as consumers, to give us the compliment as consumers. So when you get the compliment, oh my God, it's so colorful. I love this African fabrics. They're so beautiful. There's a life, not our dull gray fabrics here in Europe. And you're like, thank you. Of course, say thank you. It's a compliment. It's great. You look good. Anything we touch, we put swag in it, right? It looks good, but do a bit of self-reflection, because that compliment is also saying, oh my God, you like to consume. We make this stuff and we are building our industries with the money you throw at us. You know, that's what that's also saying. It's so important that we start combating the existing narrative, not by attacking them. That's not even going to help. It's just a passive way of doing so. If we want to be active to combat that old narrative, we have to create new narratives. So we have to embrace some of the traditional fabrics that we already have and see how can we technologically explore, develop the production of this fabric to more skill, to more beauty, to more texture, to something that's really user-friendly. So we have to start creating new narratives. And now I'm going to baby step number 3. Like I said, I think this video might already be too long, so this is the end of this first part. Remember, stay free, stay informed. There's going to be part 2 talking about the 3 baby steps. Let's forge a bold future together. You've got the power. Activate it. See you in the next video.